OutRun. By no means my favourite arcade port to the humble Spectrum, and I doubt it's anyone else's either. I recently fired this back up for a few blasts, and I'm sad to say I didn't really have a great time with it. However, it did get me thinking, and I decided that I wanted to get something positive out of having a little revisit to it. In that mindset, I recorded the arcade music from the B-side of the first tape and uploaded it. That wasn't the only idea I'd cooked up though. I also had another somewhat foolish one, which is what this video is all about. Even though I didn't exactly have fun with it before, I thought that whipping out the Logitech G920 steering wheel could perhaps spice it up a bit. This had to be done via the Spectaculator emulator, as I do not possess the knowledge, skill or patience to work out how to do such a thing on my Plus 2A. Once I'd gotten the wheel hooked up, I launched the Logitech gaming software. Then I fired up Anti-Micro X in order to map the functions. Axis 1 is the wheel axis and was set to 1 and 2. Axis 2 is the accelerator pedal, which I have mapped to 4. Axis 3 is the brake pedal, which is mapped to 3. Lastly, buttons 5 and 6 are the flappy paddle gears and are both mapped to 5. Next was to configure Spectaculator itself. Heading into Tools and then Options, the first thing I did is increase the CPU speed to 7 MHz because, as many will know, at the standard 3.5 MHz setting, this game runs like utter dog shit. After that, I headed to the joystick tab and ensured that it isn't picking up the wheel as an input device, because this could overlap with Anti-Micro X and cause problems. Now at this point I thought I was ready to go, but I encountered an issue with the TZX file that I had made from my OutRun tapes. Whenever it loaded stage data in fast or flash loading mode, the game then jumped about 6 or 7 seconds into the stage, completely screwing me over. I discovered that to resolve this, I had to open the TZX up in ZX Block Editor and manually add stop the tape commands at the end of each block of stage data. That sorted that out, however another problem then arose. When I attempted to enter stage 3 on the right hand route, the game decided it didn't want to load the stage despite clearly finding it when cycling through. Turned out the solution to this was to enter the cassette recorder tab in the emulator and disable both stop at the end of tape and flash loading, keeping enable fast loading enabled, as I was not prepared to sit through the full loading sequences between stages. After all that fucking around, it was finally time to crack on with my first proper attempt at playing. So as you can see off the bat, the 7 MHz makes this game run at a more respectable speed, but don't be deceived. This level of performance is not consistent throughout the game, as you'll see later in the video. The wheel worked quite well for it, makes for a different experience, however I'm not particularly skilled with it. Be prepared to see me crash into a lot of things as I drive like a total idiot. Anyway, time to talk about OutRun itself I suppose. The arcade game was released in 1986 by Sega and, as I'm sure you know, did pretty bloody well. It's a brilliant game and one that I was fortunate enough to actually play a few times as a child. I remember sitting in the motion cabinet, I think it was, which had found its way into some pub that I used to go to with my dad a good few years after the game initially came out. It would lean to the side when you were taking sharper turns if I remember right. I was dreadful at it, not sure I even made it to stage 2, but it was great fun and I really was in my element, wasting the change from my father's pocket in the process. I had this Spectrum port as a kid also, and I don't really remember hating it at the time, but then I was naive and generally just loved all games at that point. Having anything to play at home was enough to make me happy, regardless of the quality. I did end up with the Master System port eventually, which is the one I spent most of my time on, and I love it a lot. Can say that it's my favourite version due to the nostalgia and time spent with it. Really need to get my hands on that version again at some point. Coming back to the Specky version, I will say that the graphics actually look pretty good. Nice detail on the car and that. Does make me laugh when the back of it gets mirrored when turning right. You can see the Ferrari logo flip backwards. Granted this wasn't released in the best state, but I don't really like to shit on programmers, find it's best to give the benefit of the doubt. Like perhaps they did the best they could and the powers that be up in US gold or whatever made them rush to meet the release date or something. Either way, it's not like I'm smart enough to code anything to this level, barely able to comprehend the basics of machine code, so not exactly my place to judge. I've definitely been harsh towards this game, and even if it is warranted, I can't help but feel a bit bad when criticising it. I've come into this trying to make something good out of it. I want to find a way to enjoy it as much as is possible. We now live in an era where spec emulation is essentially flawless, so it opens the door to the possibilities of doing things like this. Being able to boost the Z80 CPU is great, and it goes a long way towards alleviating one of the biggest problems this game has. It doesn't resolve it entirely, but if there is a way to get something worthwhile out of this port, it's worth having a try at least, right? Oh, another thing to mention is that I'm playing this with the traffic difficulty set to easy. 1, because I'm crap at this game, and 2, so it doesn't grind the performance down as much. Though it does seem that after stage 1, a load more traffic is on the road anyway, so I don't know if it persists beyond the first stage. Haven't actually tried any of the other difficulties. Another thing to say is I really like the 128K music renditions. It's odd that they included the arcade music on the back of the tape, as the in-game music is good enough to drive along to. Suppose if you only had a 48K speccey, then it would be worth shoving the tape in your hi-fi when playing. I actually remember listening to it a lot as a kid just for the sake of it. I really enjoy 80s style synthwave now, so it probably sows the seeds for that. I've had plenty of times when I'm driving recklessly around on Forza while having it blasting in the background. Anyway, coming up toward the end of my first run, and can see me getting a little frustrated there. Those last 2 crashes pretty much sealed my fate in this stage, and not gonna lie, was pretty pissed off at that point. So much so that I turned it all off and went for a sulk before coming back a bit later in the day to try again. Still a big kid at heart, I suppose, even though I'm allegedly an adult. This second attempt basically turned out the same as the first. Same route, same degree of success, so I'm gonna be skipping through it a bit quicker. No sense in showing basically the same shit again. Only difference this time is that I was actually able to make it to the split in stage 3 before the time ran out. I thought this would be a good route to stick with initially because the general game performance was reasonably consistent, at least it kind of felt like it was. I'd also practiced it with my controller beforehand and got to stage 4, so I went in feeling almost confident, but yeah, I didn't really do too good on the wheel. I'm shit at this port no matter what I play with, to be honest. While I was doing all this, I started to feel less hostile towards the game, maybe Stockholm Syndrome or something, but I was feeling a bit more determined to get into it and take it for what it is. Even though it is clearly quite shite, it's a part of gaming history. It happened, even with the games that aren't great. I still get that nostalgia and recapture some of those feelings from that time period. I'm sure all of us old enough at this point do. That's the magic of going back to old games, I guess. Anyway, that's pretty much the end of this run. Entering my name here was a bit fiddly. Can see that the cursor's a bit slippery with the Z80 speed rammed up. On my third run I went for the left hand route, so quickly gonna skim over stage 1 up to the road split. Again, no real need to show all that in a video. I was still driving like shit, nothing had changed. Would think that I'd gotten better after 2 attempts, but no I had not. Ah well, such is life and all that. Can see the relevance here of having stop at end of tape being unchecked. Now here during this stage is where the game runs ridiculously fast, almost absurdly so, to the point that it's very jarring after the first one. I guess that as there isn't a lot displayed environment wise, the CPU isn't being bogged down. When I did manage to go a few seconds without hitting something, it was really fun. Probably the most fun I had at any point playing this, honestly. The feel of the crazy speed in conjunction with the steering wheel was very satisfying. Made this all worth it. This stage actually makes me think of Mad Max a bit. Just cruising my way down to Bartertown, trying to avoid all the lorries loaded full of pig shit, I guess. Don't remember there being any Ferraris in the film's mind, but whatever. Speaking of lorries, I know a lot of people were feeling a bit cheated by the screenshots on the back of the case and in magazines. They look a lot bigger on those, but I'm kinda happy that they aren't as big in the actual game. Trying to avoid them is annoying enough at this size. False advertising or not, I actually prefer them being this way. Right, on to stage 3 we go. Out of the desert into the greenery. We were about to see the other end of the performance spectrum in this. Yep, there it is. Even at 7 MHz, this is terrible, like barely playable when those arches are displayed. What's even worse is how it jumps back and forth, like when they're not on the screen the speed goes back up and it's just difficult to adjust to, even more so when using the wheel. That reminds me, crashing also confuses me a lot in this. Sometimes you spin and quickly recover without losing too much speed, other times you grind to a halt. Can't find a logic in it. Seems like no matter what speed you're doing or whatever angle you hit something at, the game just flips a coin in regards to the outcome. Gave up trying to figure it out in the end and just took each impact as it came. Saves a bit of frustration at least. Time to reflect on the whole experience, I think. I'd say that overall, yeah, this isn't a top tier port, but I'm not sure that a lot of the hate that it gets is fully deserved. I don't feel that it's as lazy as people say. I've changed my mind on it a bit, not saying it's great, but certainly more tolerable than I impulsively thought. I will say that it does require the modern emulation touch of pushing up the CPU speed to make it worth giving a proper go. I think the Spectrum Next can also do that, so it'd be worth trying on there too if you want to go the real hardware route. But old school original hardware, I can't really recommend playing it that way. It's a bit of a shame to say that, but it is what it is. On that note, we're basically at the end of the footage, so thanks for sitting through all this and watching, I hope it amused you to some degree. Just gonna finish by saying have a good one you lot, and I'll see you later.